Hello, flat earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. Just had the opportunity after getting the kids to bed to catch up on something we left behind a few weeks ago now. So I wanted to revisit this topic of direct and indirect evidence and how we mostly rely on a bunch of indirect evidence and explanations. So I've got just a list of things to go through here and discuss. If you feel like joining the discussion, hi Squirrel Sniper, greetings to you too. You alright? Mad about a sheep, hello there, hi, alright, hope you're doing alright. Yeah, I'll just go as people are coming along. Hopefully a few more will join. We'll just go through the preamble of defining what evidence is to start with. So evidence is something that furnishes or tends to furnish proof, especially something as testimony, writings or objects presented at a judicial or administrative proceeding for the purpose of establishing the truth or falsity of an alleged matter of fact. Okay, so obviously something's alleged and evidence is submitted for scrutiny, and we should indeed scrutinize all the evidence we are presented with, especially when it comes to something as important as where we live and what purpose, if any, we might have on this earth. So we've got these different types of evidence then. Again, evidence is not proof, it's to furnish proof, okay? And you'll notice that defenders of a theory, such as the globe earth heliocentric theory, will often be careful about using the word evidence rather than proof, because then they can stick to just going along with a certain explanation for that particular evidence. And then so we have indirect evidence, yeah, this one down here. Evidence that establishes immediately collateral facts from which the main fact may be inferred. Again, there's nothing about proof here. We can just say, well, we see this happening, and so we're going to say that that's evidence of this particular theory about what we say is happening based on our model and presuppositions. And then we have circumstantial evidence. This is taken from a publication called Science Direct. So circumstantial evidence is evidence that serves to establish the circumstances related to particular points or even other evidence. For example, circumstantial evidence might support claims made regarding other evidence or the accuracy of other evidence. So here is where we get a claim upon a claim, and one trying to be evidence of another. But one thing you do quickly notice when you start to try and evaluate all the evidence that we are presented with as to where we live, you see that certain things don't correlate. They are compartmentalized, and often they are not circumstantial evidence because they don't lead on to they're not supported by any other evidence or measurements or a way of just validating the so-called evidence in the first place. So it goes on. Circumstantial evidence provides details regarding circumstances that allow for assumptions to be made regarding other types of evidence. Okay, so it's very much storytelling, extreme storytelling here. This type of evidence offers indirect proof and typically cannot be used as the sole evidence in a case. So again, we're talking about having evidence that should correlate, should always be the same, especially if we're talking about something scientific. those results have to be consistent. Not consistent with a theory, but consistent with each other to corroborate as circumstantial evidence. For instance, if a person testified that she directly witnessed the defendant create and distribute malware, this would constitute direct evidence. So, someone telling you they saw something happen is constituted as direct evidence. Well, again, I suppose they'd have to prove it, and then you would examine the evidence presented as proof that that person saw that thing. Where was I? For instance, if a person testified that she directly witnessed the defendant create and distribute malware, this would constitute direct evidence. If forensics investigation of the defendant's computer revealed the existence of source code for the malware, this would constitute circumstantial evidence. Okay, so something that really does back up the claim. He did it, and it's because we found that also there. So this, for example, is such an easy one when people talk about ships going off in the horizon. Well, where is the circumstantial evidence of the curve that you assume to be there in front of you? This is just what should be part of the normal scientific investigation process. And so this is the problem as well. We have a scientific method with these 5 basic steps here. Making an observation, forming a hypothesis, making a prediction, conducting an experiment, and analyzing the results. So, you can obviously predict that certain things will happen based on your theory, and your experiment would then seem to prove or disprove your theory if you were able to make a prediction. But the thing is, with this heliocentric science, we have, for example, a luminary's path across the sky. This is an observation. So someone sees a star or the sun or the moon go across the sky. That's an observation. Then they've got to form a hypothesis about that. So without knowing what that light in the sky is or how far away it is, anything at all as to its why or wherefore, you have to form some kind of hypothesis, and the hypothesis here, of course, with the heliocentric model is the Earth is another planet orbiting the Sun. That's the assumption, the presupposition, and that's why we see a luminary move across the sky. Yeah. So, okay, we've got an observation we can make. And we've got a hypothesis that the Earth is another planet orbiting the Sun. And we're going to make a prediction now. We're going to say that the Sun or the Moon or whatever will appear or disappear at a predicted time and location. Or even a solar eclipse or something will take place. Yeah. Simply because people have been keeping records for thousands of years, or maybe longer. That doesn't constitute any kind of model. However, what happens is the prediction's made that we're going to see a solar eclipse on this particular date, and my hypothesis is that it's because the Earth is another planet revolving around the Sun. So if I can make that prediction and we conduct an experiment, we observe this going on in the sky, and we see this eclipse, and it occurs at the time, the date and location as predicted, then there you go. There is this scientific method that proves we live on a spinning globe. Yeah? It's quite pretentious, quite silly, presumptuous for sure. Yeah? So I'll go on to this next, but let's just have a quick look, see what's happening in the chat. Whoa, okay. Just coming back into the chat there. Hello. Let me just go and say hello to everyone. Oddman, all right. Myroslav Kordic, hello from Serbia. Hello there. One man, hello mate. Run Boston Bear, let's go. I believe the Earth to be stationary and all over overall level. I don't know where the boundaries are or what the luminaries above are, but it's my current belief. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, and obviously belief is an important part of what we're talking about here. You know, discerning the difference between fact and belief. What do we know? What do we believe? Nachiketa, hello there. All right. Okay, David Banner, good day, sir. All right. Okay, let me just quickly scroll through here. Okay, see who else we got. Okay, Raja, if the Earth is flat, how come ships don't go over the edge? All right, Raja, I'm not even going to go there. That's sorry, beyond talking about things like that. There is no real edge to speak of. Get that picture of an edge out of your mind. In fact, the globe is supposed to be one big edge. Where's the globe edge? Go and find that first. Renee. The tumbling spinning ball is just pseudoscience, globe diarrhea, and the gravity of the situation is that most, I think, steeple are completely hypnotized with CGI and indoctrination. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that. This is a thing, isn't it? You know, and of course it sounds like pretentious to say it like that, but that's not without us having been through it and examined our own beliefs ourselves and realized that we believed things, we acted on certain beliefs and said certain things because we thought a certain way, and then on reflection you realize that you were maybe persuaded to do that from outside influences rather than your own intuition. And so yeah, okay, sorry, there's a bit of a conversation going on about tests. I'm not going to get into that. Hello, Inrem. Thank you for your very kind comment, Inrem. Just enjoy doing that. It's nice to kind of, you know, work on things and get them down. So yeah, all right, let's go crack on with this. Okay, thanks for coming along, everyone. Yeah, you know, real simple. I mean, again, there's a lot of this all goes through our heads, but it's good to go over it and remind ourselves of just, you know, how far removed we were from any kind of free thinking when you're trapped in the globe cult. Yeah. So, of course, if you ever go and look up how it was first understood that we live on a globe, we've got these stories of Eratosthenes. And then we've got, sorry, just to be clear, Eratosthenes talks about a circumference over the equator. We all know that that can be on a level Earth as well. Thought experiments, such as space being a vacuum so that planets can turn indefinitely. Of course, if you've got something like, if you're assuming that Earth is a massive planet, gazillion tons of earth and rock or whatever moving at incredible speeds around the sun, then of course you have to have a medium that doesn't give it any friction. This is all just thought experiments, and okay, great, you can get up to a certain space and it's, you know, to a near vacuum. It doesn't seem that anyone's really gotten there. All it is extrapolated figures that, okay, if we just keep going up, we get these layers and layers, and it gets thinner and thinner until eventually there's just nothing bouncing around up there, no molecules bouncing off each other, so that's a vacuum. Again, this just defies logic. It defies anything we can ever actually replicate scientifically in real world physics. Yeah. So the whole vacuum thing is just it's just a necessity, because you're talking about having to, how would you do this? Well, Galileo played with marbles and worked out the friction and things like that. So these little pieces were added onto the model as these explanations and assumptions were all kind of cobbled together, really, I suppose. So here we're looking at the third one for indirect evidence, other planets in the sky, again labeling the Earth as another planet. Again, there was emotive reasons for this, just to I suppose in an attempt to be scientific and pragmatic. they would assume, not necessarily for any malicious intent, but just to be scientific, that no, we're not the center of the universe that we can see. That doesn't mean the universe beyond whatever that goes, because we know that there is obviously always going to be, it's limitless. You cannot define something that's finite, because that it just goes beyond anything we can really think about or conceive or perceive. So kind of lost my track there. But just go on to number 4 then. Making predictions about luminaries. Again, what we went back to with the scientific method. If they say, oh, I can make a prediction that such and such is going to happen, and I believe that it's all in this, I can show it in this heliocentric model, and voila, they've got their proof of their theory. Day and night are really just a really simple one. It's just insane that we that again, the struggle is really just that idea that of a massive sun that really can't be imagined at a great distance. But of course, those images we've seen just make sense for the model, and so it just is kind of accepted as the only one that's ever offered up. There's no we're never asked, we're never told. You think about this, we're never asked or taught or encouraged to think of it in any other way. We're told this is how it is because mathematicians say so. 7, Mercury and Venus observed orbiting the sun. Maybe that was one of those early observations. I'm not sure exactly why I put that in there. 8, the ability to navigate. Okay, they've known for thousands of years that it's a globe. Well, there are no, where are the globes? Where are these globes of the old world? There aren't any, really. 9, explanations for monthly moon orbit. Of course, it's another thing, really. A lot of us don't spend time. I remember as a kid just being surprised one time. We were out camping and someone said, oh, there's a daytime moon. And, when you're a kid, you kind of notice it from time to time. But for the most part, I think most of us really don't pay close attention to the rising and falling of the moon, or even the sun. I mean, it comes up for us. It's just a daily occurrence, and we get on with it, and people run their lives by it to a certain extent. But the moon is something we don't really think about, and then when we do start asking questions, we are of course given a particular explanation, and they are quite can be quite in-depth explanations at some point, when you've got to imagine all sorts of things going on in order for the Earth to be orbiting the sun and spinning on its axis 24 hours a day, but the moon is only orbiting the Earth once a month or once every 28 days, and that's why we see the phases and all this jazz. And again, just looking at that, when you think about it, it's like you look at the heliocentric model and you think, how can that work? If that's going around there, the moon is going to get drawn into the sun, is it not? And how can this not make things wobble? And again, we've got compartmentalized explanations which seem to somehow work for a model, what people would call a working model, I suppose. Yeah. So, but then you start looking. It's like, wow, actually, you can see the moon. The moon comes up. Either, let's just say, if it's a new moon, the moon's coming up after the sun every day, and they get further and further apart, and then you see, okay, there's going to be a point where the sun reaches the moon reaches a full moon, and it's opposite the sun, and then it is going to start waning again and coming closer to the sun in these orbits. You can, once you break free of that complicated moon model with the globe Earth, you can then it's fun. It's just fun and liberating to see it and be able to picture it objectively happening in a different way that works equally well. So there you go. You've got an explanation for how the moon works above the flat Earth, rather than having to assume that it only does one particular movement around a globe Earth. All right, and then you're on your journey. You're taking those steps to kind of putting these things together. You're making real life observations, and you're basically studying the explanations that are given with the so-called evidence or the indirect evidence, and you're comparing it to other things that you can think of, and okay, that works too. Why not? Yeah. So, of course, after that we've got, high on the list really is space exploration and the moon landings. Just one of those massive lies that's so big that people cannot believe that it didn't happen. Yeah. And of course, when you think about it, you just think back of all the sci-fi we were shown, the books, classrooms, TV. It's all about, so much about aliens or dinosaurs or something. These are hardwired into our life experience, and they become a reality through our imaginations, and constant reinforcement. Satellites and the ISS, of course, we all understand how satellites are supposed to be working, why they're going fast enough not to get pulled into the Earth as they whiz around it in a vacuum, and so on. And so, again, it's assumed that this word satellite is only to mean something that is orbiting a globe Earth, when you can look it up, and NASA's first satellites were balloons, and maybe they were or weren't putting them up there, but they were apparently putting Echo 1 and 2 up there and getting signals, relaying TV and radio signals. And so this was a boon to the communications industry. Space and all that is just a kind of backstory. What's really going on is establishing a communications network, a global communications network. And as you know, if you just paid your mobile phone bill or your internet or your TV license, I doubt if any of you have, then this is all just pure profit for being able to send data from through pre-existing infrastructure. It's one of the most lucrative industries out there. And so, of course, space agencies are at the forefront of communicating across the world. Yeah. Of course, the ISS. This is something that just takes a critical eye to look at, and you can see so many flaws in that, or things, again, the things you don't see. But of course, it's because of its predictability, because you can say, all right, I'm going to see the ISS go past the moon or the sun at a certain time or location. The Earth must be a globe. It must be, that's proof. When the predictions are just that. Nothing changes. And of course, as I was saying, number 12, aerospace and communications industry employs thousands of smart scientists to work on costly taxpayer-funded projects. Yeah, well, we're doing it for the science, exploration. And for an example of that is the cost of the Wilkinson microwave anisotropy probe, $150 million. It's probably out there, actually not that much in terms of space industry ventures. But ultimately, 13 is we'd have no direct measure of curvature, not one piece of circumstantial or evidence or proof that we have actual curvature. Yeah. I'll just go back to the chat. Okay, just do this in chunks and go to the chat. Let's have a look. Wow, great to see so much interaction. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to kind of get too off track. What's that in Rem? Eratosthenes is not mentioned by any author of antiquity. Ah, interesting. Yeah, it's all just in the modern history books, isn't it? Yeah, just a guy, just a story. You know, uh, think about something like that as well with Newton. Yeah, is this just the guy that the prop guy they put up for the metric system? Don't know. Fat Plane, what are your thoughts on Dell's physical demonstrations of the dowels in water being dropped, Nick? Hard to argue with the real world fact, but poses more questions of the macro of what this place is. I've spoken to Dell myself about it really, and I'm not, too sure that there needs to be a connection made. I think there needs to be a distinction between acceleration and movement, and I kind of see that there are certain thought experiments that are being matched up with certain physical experiments that, to be honest, I don't see that connection. So, yeah, I basically don't think that there is, what's the word? Acceleration is what causes things to change. So if a bubble is going up, you accelerate it in the opposite direction, that bubble will stop going up because everything's getting changed direction. So the fact that we've got these layers of density and acceleration is one way you can do that is fine. And the only way you can do that, you can't do that linearly. You can't do acceleration linear. Well, you can, but you have to just keep on accelerating, right? If something is accelerating in a straight line. So, for example, movement on its own, movement just moving this thing without too much acceleration doesn't really do anything to the liquid inside. But that I could fling this around my head, and that constant circular motion will be constant acceleration, even though you might be only going at a certain speed. So, in that sense, you can create this whole density layer effect with acceleration. But personally, I think there's more it's more local. There's nothing that because of that, because linear acceleration would mean a constant increase in speed when we're talking about a steady weight. So the constant increase in speed would create more weight. It's just not a viable thing. So there's no way, even if the Earth is moving, there's no way it's accelerating, right? Can't be doing that because it would just be getting more and more. We'd just be weighing more and more and more. So we're talking about a force that creates weight. And okay, you can talk about forces and how that happens, but just movement won't, everything gets carried along. If everything's getting carried along and something's moving at a constant speed, then, it doesn't really create the pressure. So in that sense, you wouldn't, things would maybe be weightless if you're doing this thought experiment where you're talking about a constant movement, because it's only when you have acceleration that you start to get the same effects of downward gravity. For example, if a train accelerated, you'd have to hang on, and your legs would go out horizontally, and that acceleration would give you the same effect as hanging down in what we experience in the real world. But that, once everything caught up to speed, and of course we're talking about the air and a container and all that stuff as well, so that's all going along with it, it's all caught up. So movement on its own doesn't, in my mind, doesn't create the force required to actually have us experiencing gravity. There you go. I went off on a real sidetrack there. Sorry about that. But this is what I've chatted with Del about, and it's really not. Yeah, I need to maybe think more about it, or whatever, or maybe there's too much thinking going on. Yeah, because I'm quite comfortable, really. I think of it like an engine or a car or something. This is a journey, and we're in a car or a vehicle, and it works. We don't need to fix it. We don't really need to know how it works, or we can. I think you get to that point where trying to. We do this with the sun. We do this with the moon. We look at the moon and you think, how does it work? What's it doing? What's going on? And you rattle your brains trying to think of it. You're trying to think of another way, another thing. Oh, does it glow? Is it phosphorescent? Is it neon lights? Is it light from somewhere else? Is it its own light? And what's it? But none of it. You cannot answer these questions. You cannot. We can of course theorize and have thought experiments, but there's, to be honest, that's a form of suffering. That's to me that's not the point of this whole thing, is to really know the mechanics, because we don't need to tinker with it. We need to just kind of get along with the ride, So, anyway, hope that's kind of like helped explain. MR Stewart 4414, do you think Elon is in on it? Don't know. He could. This is the thing. Who knows? I mean, so what? This is the thing. Another thing you have to. That is part of the journey, isn't it? You start to realize that people will do anything for money sometimes, or anything for fame. They're not even thinking. They're not even aware, perhaps, of what they're doing, or the bigger picture. Just because someone's a CEO, and especially if you're put on a pedestal, I'm sure many of us have been through it, or you've seen other people go through it, where you might get some kind of elevated status in an organization, and you think it's down to your skills and everything. You're just the right person for the job, but really you're just another guy that's going through the mill, and one of many that have already gone through, and put all their energy and devoted so much to it, and of course with a reward as well, have carried on trying to aspire to this unattainable goal, because ultimately someone else is in charge, and they're never going to let you have the reins. And we just bamboozle ourselves. We can, you can do that. You can see people doing that. So I don't know, and I don't really care too much. I mean, if he was a real philanthropist, like all of these people, then they would be doing things that are less destructive. But you can see that, obviously, for example, with the cars or whatever, that the plan's there to electrify it all, and create that dependence. So he's heading towards a future where these things are guaranteed, where people will be dependent on certain products. So you've got to get a head start there, and that's all he'll be thinking about. He won't be. You can imagine the detail and stuff, the focus and attention someone like that has to have on just the job at hand. So you're lucky, you're quite fortunate if you've got the time and the space, the headspace to sit back and think about the big picture. Yeah. Okay, fair point, Ryan. Yeah. No, he's not going to Mars. Of course not. Yeah, fat plane again. Yes, I mean I've always said that as well. It's like there's absolutely no need to get your knickers in a twist about a postulation. That's what we're all doing, and that's cool. And again, it's you know, it's right to point out that we are often attached to ideas, and yeah, we can postulate all sorts of things, and that's okay. But for those reasons that, you know, I don't see that postulation fits with the actual physics that we can conduct. Yeah. A moving Earth would have to be an accelerating Earth, and an accelerating Earth doesn't work because that's not what's happening. Everything's constant. So for me, it's not moving. There's another way. You can create these effects, but that doesn't correlate to me with our experience. And again, you come back to what can you measure? What other circumstantial evidence can you bring up apart from a thought experiment where something's dropping but it's in a rising reference frame? That's just a thought experiment, and it doesn't solidify anything as far as I'm concerned with this idea or the postulation that movement creates the force required to have gravity and weight. Something else is going on, and it's beyond anything that we can really prove. Yeah, I agree. I agree, David Banner. He's showing real physics. Yeah, but you know, it's as we see, often down to a matter of interpretation. Right then. Thomas F.E. Gron, why accelerating? We can only measure terminal velocity. Not sure what your point is there. You know, because if you drop something, or you move, or you're in a car and you move, and the helium balloon goes forwards, or you drop something, you're then accelerating it. It's not movement. It is movement, but it's not constant movement because you're changing its direction. As acceleration is changing the direction. Yeah, so. You know, as soon as you start moving everything that's in this container or pushing it in a different direction, you are going to affect the things in that container, and they're going to stop doing what they were doing. Yeah. But that's you know, it's fine, no biggie, really. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is it. You know, I mean, David, we kind of what can we really know? We just, I mean, we're still. Again, it's fine to there's an idea, there's a postulation, put it aside, put it on the back burner, let's see what else comes up. Yeah, that's cool, and that goes for, you know, exploration and things like that. You know, is anyone ever going to go to these places that would prove something? And even if we could, if we could travel, what would we be proving? Because we can think about going to other lands and being free from the systems and the countries and the politics and everything that we are born under, born into. But at the same time, that's what's really important to me about this whole realization is, and again, this understanding in our own minds of what the difference between belief and knowledge. And when you realize that you believed everything, you are then free. You are so much more free to really go in a more true direction. You know, when you're talking about seeking the truth, there is perhaps no objective truth. There doesn't need to be an objective truth. We just have to find our own subjective truth, and it's unique for each one of us. Although it may have some very similar connotations for everyone that's doing that. Yeah, but again, this goes back to, all right, if we get to the point where we see that there's a limit to our understanding, there's a limit to anything we can really know about how any of this was created, how it was put together, we can and then stop, you know, being distracted by some of that, which is something I wanted to get onto down here. So if you don't mind, I'll just kind of go into this emotive reasoning. So of course we do have this fascination about our origins. Yeah, it's of course the question we start to ask when we become more kind of self-aware, and you know, when you're a young age. Well, okay, takes a while to even understand that you came from mummy and daddy, and how they created you, but and how did that all go back, and where did that all start? It is fascinating, but still very much unanswerable, right? But we that's the thing, we have a strong desire for answers, yeah, really strong desire for answers, because it's you've got, especially with so much else going on in the world, we're born into situations, family situations, that are way beyond our control, and way, of course, if you're experiencing that from a young age, you don't know any different. So there are going to be all sorts of things. Why is this happening to me? Why that? Why did I suffer this? Again, this is something. It is suffering. It's there's nothing wrong with asking the question, but how far down the line can we go to get answers? And of course, there is a strong desire to explore, and I think that, again, that's part of the whole globe narrative. Is that we're looking up, we're talking. There's Elon. We got faith in Elon going to Mars. I mean, what? What's the point? What's the point in going to this rock? Why would we have this urgent desire to get off this rock that has everything for us? It's all here. It's all free. The water, the air. It's all perfect for us. Yet we've got our attention directed up to the stars at these, what we believe are rocks with nothing on them. And so it's funny, though, I think that does go into this root desire for some kind of nothingness, an escape from all the confusion and calamity that's going on, all these pressures from society, from everywhere. This world that we live in, it is relentless. And so it's interesting, isn't it? In a way, that could be a very romantic idea to, just as you might want to get off to a desert island, it would be a very romantic idea in a way to get off to the moon, or to be, off to Mars. Finally, finally, I'm away from it all. But this is just a pipe dream. This is this desire that we have to be somewhere else rather than where we are. So apart from this strong desire the strong desire to explore is directed upwards rather than across the plane. You can't go here, you can't go there, and it's already in our minds. I mean, we just become apathetic in that respect. We've stopped exploring. Oh, Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, has been climbed a gazillion times. The furthest point, the coldest, whatever. It's all been discovered now. Nothing to see. Yeah. And there's relentless repetition of this as well, isn't there? It's just repeated daily, and we do it ourselves, and we do it to each other. This is something that you could observe in the whole Rona pandemic that went by. We could see just how easily and quickly people adopted certain mantras, certain ways of thinking, certain ways of doing things, behaviors, cultural changes. Really, just and it was because if you're awake to it, you just see this relentless repetition, and it's dawn till dusk, incessant, non-stop, and a lot of people just get caught up in it. They don't even realize. Yeah, nor did we a lot of the time, did we? We didn't realize that we were being told untruths by those who we had faith in to tell us the truth. Of course, there's stigmatization of any questioning. I found that actually, in the British culture, maybe the American is similar, I don't know, but British culture, there's a lot of sarcasm. It's very brutal sometimes. There is stigmatization. There is discrimination, and we're not talking about just color or race, but it's just anything they can find to discriminate against someone with. They will. That's what a lot of school kids will end up doing in those formative years. Then we have this apparently logical deduction and reasoning. So the other planet thing. Oh, we're looking at these planets. We must be on this as another planet. We're doing this, and we're going these things. These compartmentalized explanations somehow seem to make sense, even though they don't really connect that well. There's also this collective pride in humanity's achievements. And that's okay, reasonable, and it's understandable. We can do a lot with science, and progress is always a good thing. A favourite phrase of mine is that you can't stop progress. And we'll always be worried about this or that. There's a lot of talk about AI and things, but you could talk about that with cars or electric carving knives or whatever, electricity. Well, it can do a lot of good, but there will be from time to time psychos or people that just can't control themselves that will do very bad things with those tools that they have available to them. And so it's always going to be down to the individual to use their own discernment and ability to control themselves, and operate in a way that ultimately ensures survival rather than carnage. So that things like that don't really change anything. Don't change the landscape too much, because it will always be full of people that want to do damage, but it will also be full of a lot of people that want to help each other, and all these positive traits, fascinations about our origins, a strong desire for answers, a strong desire to explore. These are all things that really kick you off in a new direction as well. They drive you. Okay, you've realised that is just a crock of nonsense. The stuff you've been taught, the adults that you believed in, they're just other people. The elite that you believed in, these movers and shakers that you were told to admire, they're just people, and they rise and fall just like anything else. And so then you detach from that pride. You think about what progress we have really made. Have we really made progress? Maybe there are less wars, maybe fewer people are being killed, but there's a lot. The thing is, there's a lot we don't see. We're very distracted with stuff that keeps a lot of that stuff hidden. A false impression of progress. Okay, like I said, we're still shooting Elon shooting rockets up in the air just the way they used to. They haven't worked out an anti-gravity device yet. Come on. There's comfort in having answers, right? Not wanting to leave the comfort zone. We can see that, and this is the thing about trying to kind of bash people over the head with flat Earth. There's no point. Absolutely no point if they're not ready, if they're not interested in it. This is part of the learning process we have to go through. You have this realization that so many things are wrong about the way we perceive reality. You don't necessarily have answers, but you at least have this. You can see now. And if they're not going to put the glasses on, they won't see. Because they don't want to leave their comfort zone, and people will go to their grave like that. That's okay. They might get another chance in the next life. That's okay. We can't be spending. I think part of my own journey or progress is to realize that a lot of these things you wait for the right time, or it's an individual thing rather than a mass thing. It's not going to happen, maybe. And maybe it's always been this way. Maybe it's just maybe there is no tipping point. Maybe it just kind of carries on. Maybe you find the group, the community that you want to belong to, and you operate your own system and way of doing things, and a way in that way you've kind of detached from that predominant system. So I think the last one as well is very important. This escapism, focus on the future, distraction from the shit show of now. Yeah, I think that's really, we a lot of the time our mind is very rarely in the present. It's very rarely in the now. Really, very, very rarely is it, right? We're either thinking about the past or imagining some future scenario. So we're either in the past or the future. We're very rarely present and not thinking about, or doing something with a kind of ulterior motive, maybe in the now. It's just like there's this massive difference with doing things to fulfill expectations and you go along with perceptions instead of just being and letting the flow come. If you are a productive person, if you are hardworking, and if you might have struggled, you might just keep on doing your own thing wherever you are on that journey. Just keep on going, because that's your thing. That's what you specialize in. Yeah, know that everyone's unique in that way. We're all each other's teachers, and we can't be just. This is something we all realize that as we grow up, those people that we admired who had no fault, well, they are just people. They can be faulted, and we don't have to point fingers of blame. We can also see all these faults occurring in ourselves, and this is the thing, isn't it? You start to examine yourself. You look at other people, and you realize that you're just like other people. We are in one and the same in that respect. Human reactions and human, whether it's laughter, pain, birth, death, they are all, we all have these in common, no matter where we come from. Family, love, joy, all these things. Yeah, these are the things that we experience as jealousy, and there are psychos, there are sociopaths, and there are empaths. It's a whole mixed bag, and that's okay as well. It's really just having an awareness of that, isn't it? So I've really got off on a tangent there, but I think that's a major problem in anything. We distract. We love to distract ourselves with stuff, anything that stops us thinking about the now or being present. Yeah. Okay. Just whiz back to the chat briefly. Emerald Rider, hello, Brian. We can only verify what we can experience, i.e. no motion, acceleration, nothing, only our sensations like weight. Sensation of falling tells you are moving, not the earth. I would tend to agree with that. Yeah, we're talking about, when we look at the whole big picture, there's so many things that would need to be tie in with that, and no. And again, it makes sense to me that the Earth is an incubator for life. You wouldn't throw an incubator around like that. You would move the light around. Yeah, it's just when it came to flat Earth, and you had that realization, that letting go, and that kind of, you really came down to Earth again. It's like because you're not imagining this spinning that doesn't exist and this movement that doesn't exist. So immediately those same arguments pop up when it comes to can you measure the spin? Can you measure the movement? Where is this? It's all just conceptual, and I'm kind of again, there's only so far you can go. It doesn't really answer anything. Right, hang on, let's just go back. One man, what's that? Physics are only about the physical world, solids, liquids, gases. Yeah, but yeah. What's that auto hoax? What we know and what we believe must always be examined objectively. No one has the mindset that they are fooled or easily misled. That's true, yeah. I mean, it's easy to get wrapped up in. I think I remember that being part of the process as well. I remember going through that. I remember stopping and thinking, okay, am Am I being taken for a ride here? Am I taking myself for a ride here? Have I just gone down? Have I gone far too far down the rabbit hole? But at the same time, I remember being at a stage where I was. It's like, okay, right. There's there's the banking system. There's 9/11. There's all these things. There's these hoaxes. There's the medical thing. There's all these people lying. There's all these people doing things for profit. Politicians are in it for themselves, not for the people. All that stuff. It doesn't matter who you vote for. That all became apparent. But I wasn't. At the same time, I wasn't swayed by the doom and gloom stuff. It's like, no. There's a Armageddon, or this kind of ultimate destruction isn't where it's all necessarily heading. So what is it? What's the big secret? I remember being at that kind of stage where there was a sense of trying to, where's this all leading? I was thinking, okay, I get the picture now, but I still don't have any answers. And then when Flat Earth came along, horizons at your eye level, we're not moving, we're not spinning, this is how it was always perceived. And then, wow, okay, fantastic. That just made sense, totally made sense. Then it became a process of working through all these other explanations and dismantling them. Run Boston Bear. You on me, I enjoy your... Okay, you're talking to someone else. I enjoy your faith. Thanks for sharing. I've learned over time to let others believe what they want. I'm not threatened by it. If they are curious how I have lasting peace and joy, I'll share. Okay, yeah, but that is basically it. It is a case of letting go. It is. Whatever the situation, we are tested in such extreme ways sometimes. And often it's about letting go. Truth 12, there is only one truth, not two. So why is your handle Truth 12? Nachikat, I wish I could say that. Nachiketa. We are striving towards objectivity. But that's the thing, isn't it? We're always dealing with something that becomes very esoteric and metaphysical. There's a limit. There is a limit. One man says, there is a very cool law in this world. There is a reason for everything. Can't hide from it. I think, in that sense, you're right. Everything's a lesson. It's amazing what we kind of look, when you look back and you think, wow, that was incredible. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Some amazing synchronicity sometimes. Yeah, fat plane. And the border claim is the core is molten rock. Yeah, it's kind of. A lot of INFE. Hello. Lake Tahoe CA was surveyed across using fire signals at the ends to set the border about 22 miles across. No curve, I'm sure. Okay. NA literalist, I could ride my bikes. Emerald Rider. Okay, I've gone through your comment already. Going back down there again. Auto hoax, going to Mars to colonize is madness. A serious god complex that man thinks he could pull out off. Mars is just a light in the sky, is what the truth is. Yeah, it's quite mental, isn't it? But then you can imagine, whatever, people might have all sorts of deep-seated reasons for again, this. It's a form of escape. I can imagine, for example, imagine if you are someone that's constantly thinking, your mind is just overburdened with thoughts, then actually, again, it would be quite an attractive thing to imagine. Okay, being on some barren planet, with nothing, with virtually no stimulation. Maybe that's a craving that Elon has in his core. Yeah. Yeah, that's that Nachikita. I've read that. Yeah. Right. Hello, Lily. Good to see you. I'm on vacation. Emerald Rider. I'm on vacation in a cheap motel. No, I'm in. I'm in the room that I usually spend my days doing my office work. There's just these very bland curtains there. Yeah. One man says, if anything learnt me most to keep open-minded was finding out I don't live on a ball. Yeah, definitely. Hello, Nathan. All right, my man. Okay. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Let me just write. I think I've gone down to the bottom. Oh no, I haven't gone down. But sorry. I don't want to kind of. Yeah. There's just. I didn't. There's no point in going through these heliocentric assumptions, really, is it? But you know, we kind of know what they are. But there were 7. Basically, I suppose the point is that there were 7 assumptions made. Yeah, for the model. Yeah, always keep that in mind. They're just assumptions, not done by any measure of curvature, but just by looking up at the stars. But that's, you know, to be honest, this is that's just by the by, to be honest, really. So, you know, progress is. Hi, multi-fuzzy head. Progress is obviously great, you know, and to be heralded. And of course, the thing is, one thing we get to understand, or is that everybody, each unique person has a unique skill set, or you know, they're going in their own direction. Again, that's okay. There's no need to be fighting over things, really. And it's, I think, sometimes it's difficult to kind of just. It's a challenge. Part of that challenge that we have is just to step back and, okay, that person's got their journey. We might not fully understand the journey that they're on, and that's okay. Everyone's doing their own thing, and that's the only way that we can really kind of do things scientifically and get some results. You know, you don't all have to go in one direction at one time. It's just everyone just carry on doing their thing, have their focus. You know, you may agree or disagree with the way people do things, but you know, that's it's just because it's not your thing. Well, that's a, you know, one size doesn't fit all, and that's the beauty of where we are. That's the beauty of what we're doing. Yeah, it's a shame to kind of stagnate a lot of the time with going around the same old arguments. But the progress is both kind of, we're getting there. We are getting there. People are. You know, it's not about swapping beliefs. It's about really detaching from those beliefs, isn't it? So, it's challenging. It is a challenge, but maybe that's the whole point. Maybe that is the whole point and purpose of us being here. Because I think another thing that's really, you know, was a heart-sinking moment or an adrenaline-pumping moment was that realization that, oh, okay, I'm responsible now for my actions. You know, you realize and even your thoughts, and so that's a big thing. Because you realize that you know, when we talk about the way you might affect people or have affected people, or the way people have affected you, and you try and you look at it all in a mirror, you start reflecting, and it's quite kind of, again, that's with the distractions. This is all these distractions prevent us from doing what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to reflect. We can't. Again, pointing fingers of blame doesn't ever really help anyone. Trying to prove your point over theirs doesn't really help anyone either. It's just allowing the flow is probably a lot more conducive. Can't remember where I was going with that. Yeah. So yeah, progress. Yeah, isn't it? You know, we are making progress because it's multifaceted. It really is. You know, when we're talking about where we are and who we are and why we're here, it is massive. Maybe it is the purpose. That maybe our whole purpose is to experience that suffering, that desire to find out, and then get to a point where we realize there's a limit to what we can find out, and then. Well, then we have to think about how we're going to play it from then on. Are we going to continue to suffer and frustrate ourselves with trying to trying to do what? Trying to become. It's funny, trying to become a god, even though in some ways you could say that we are our own god. Yeah. Where does it? Where do we draw the line there? Where do we ever get any any answers that mean anything from the outside? They're really going to come from the inside. So that's why, this is a personal journey. Let's try and catch up with the chat there. Yeah, good point, Nachiketa, sorry. Also, more people are falling deeper into sleep too, at the same time more waking up, and also more falling asleep. The wheat and the chaff is starting to separate more and more. Yeah, maybe those divides do happen. Maybe it's just the way it is. It just continually cycles in this way. There's nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be all doom and gloom about. Tony Whitcomb, I knew it was flat when I was at school, but never went down the rabbit hole, too busy playing footy and getting the girls. Well, why not? Yeah, this is it. The whole flat earth thing turns into a bit of a kind of old man's argument sometimes. And I think that's part of it, is the letting go. We go through a phase, we have these realizations, and then just as we let go of a certain globe belief, or we let go of the belief that certain people will have certain answers for us, we also have to let go of that belief that we're going to find answers by continually grasping. That's the letting go is often the most challenging thing to do, but it's also the most rewarding. Effed up world, hello. What's that? Second, Esdras says that when God starts to rescue people from the world, the rest of the world will go out of their minds. Yeah. I mean, I do, the whole, of course, there's no denying that there's a higher intelligence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to rely on a higher power, because, as I said, we are. If you're part of it, then you just are. You don't need to do anything to reinforce that. Yeah, flat enough. That's true. You realise how fast youth passes. It definitely does. What's that, David Banner? Actually thinking about it, it was all the space movies that did some indoctrination at school. Yeah, for sure, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, after that world, I mean, I get where you're coming from. As I said, there is a higher power that, is everything, that, responsible for everything, for sure. But I think we kind of just got to get on with it as well. Without, I think the problem with a lot of religion is the guilt trips, and of course I'm not, that is usually down to the people that are preaching it, teaching it, or whether and their own ends. Yeah, but ultimately those religions are all talking about, finding the God within and without. Yeah, it's making that connection, free of the sins, free of the suffering. Yeah, so easy to see in other people, very difficult to see in ourselves. And I think again that's the challenge. These these teachings are there, the recommendations are there, but just as if you've got kids, you might have, your words of wisdom fall on deaf ears, water off a duck's back. And you have to, again, surrender to the fact that they are going to have to experience it for themselves before they can be any position to even begin to understand why you've, after all those years, reached that state of mind. You just have to let it go. Yeah. In that sense. What's that, Tony Whitcomb? Teachers couldn't handle me. My question wasn't ready for them, so I was told to shut up all the time, but still got good grades, mostly by looking out the window. Fair shout. Okay. Hello, Jew Narc Buster. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Yeah. What's that, flat enough? Phuket, were your heliocentric assumptions there, are they meant to reflect the modern mainstream? If so, they're a bit off. Oh, no, I mean, I was just, sorry, okay, yeah, these were pretty much what was on the Copernican thing. That was pretty much, no, they're not the modern day assumptions, but yeah, they've had to keep on adapting things, so, yeah. All right. Well, it's getting off at 2 a.m. for me. Really good to Emerald Rider. Good to see you back, and hope you're making progress for your next trip to Mexico. And hoping everything's cool with you. Yeah. All right. What's that one, man? Just as the finite world feels weird and wrong, life, death, nothing, but so does the infinite world, forever and ever. Yeah, that's true. Okay, good point. I mean, this is it. We end up with this dichotomy because we can't think of anything other than that. It's so bizarre, isn't it, really? Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. If the chat's a bit slow, it says that slow mode's on, so sorry about that. But I'm going to wrap it up now. Really appreciate you coming along. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for contributing. Yeah. And I'll be getting a whiteboard soon, a bigger whiteboard soon, thanks to some more Patreons helping support the fight here. So yeah, thank you, Natiketa. It's very nice. And yeah, I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll catch up soon. Have yourselves a great week. Ta-ta for now.